All right. This is the 32nd episode of the Runnin My Mouth podcast. I am your rambunctious host, Aaron, and I just bought a fly. All right. Slight short detour. It was not 2 flies, it was 4 of them. 4 of them that I could see, anyways. Which just completely derailed everything. Ugh. I have had not great experiences with flies in my apartment. I try to keep my apartment very clean. As clean as I can, as clean as one person can. You know, one person making messes in a very small apartment, it's not that hard. But sometimes there are, let's say, environmental factors working against me. Because the way that my apartment is set up is that, each unit has its own trash can, right? Which is normal, you would think. Except in the last apartment I stayed, it was one big trash can for each floor. But this apartment that I'm staying in is much smaller than the last one that I stayed in number of units. So each unit gets to have its own trash can. But the way that my apartment is oriented is that the trash can bays are steps away from my front door. And this place is not exactly, I don't want to say, it's not well insulated. I mean, I literally had an episode, 2 episodes ago, where I talked about getting a snake in my house. So if a snake was able to get in, flies have been able to get in. I'm not talking about little gnats. I'm not talking about just little buzzy little fruit flies. I'm talking about the big, black, ugly ones, okay? The ones that propagate around garbage. And given that it is, the middle of August in Mississippi, the trash is just heating up, getting nice and juicy for all the creatures, especially the flies. And sometimes, I don't leave my door open because why would I? But sometimes flies from the trash get into my apartment, and it is so annoying. I can't remember if I talked about this when this happened, but it was sometime last year that I came home after work one day, and it was literally immediately after work, and I was cooking dinner, and I had made my dinner, and it was still on the stove. Thankfully, I'd covered everything up, and keep in mind, while I was cooking, I did not see any flies anywhere. My home was free of flies, but all of a sudden, after I had cooked my dinner and, left it on the stove covered, thank God, and sat down over here to eat it, all of a sudden, my house just explodes with flies. I'm talking, it was an obscene amount of flies. I'm not talking about just 1 or 2 here or there. I think with no exaggeration, it was maybe 20 flies, 20 big black flies in my house, buzzing around, just terrorizing me. And I was in such, terror that I called my mom in a panic, oh my God, there's so many flies in here, what do I do? And she just tells me, go to the store and buy fly spray. So I did. I bought a can of Raid, which is almost empty now. I'm gonna have to re-up on it. And I had to chase all these flies around my apartment, which thankfully isn't that big, but still, flies, they fly pretty fast, and you lose track of them pretty fast, especially when there's 20 of them. And no, it had to be more than 20. It was definitely more than 20. It was maybe even closer to 40. That's how many flies there were. Just came out of nowhere. I didn't see them. It's not like I left my door open or anything like that. They just erupted from a vent or something. I didn't even see where they came from. It was the most insane thing ever that's happened. It got to the point where I was like, okay, did a rat or something die in my vents and attract flies? What on earth has happened? To this day, I'm not, because unfortunately I have found out that there are rats in proximity to my apartment. I've yet to see one actually in my home, but I'll never forget the first night that I spent here. I could not sleep because I heard things crawling around in the ceiling, in the vents, and, I don't hear it anymore. That stopped after a couple of weeks of me living here, but I remember my neighbor on this side has like kind of a porch, which is crazy because they're the only one who has a porch, but whatever. I'm not going to dwell on that for too long. They have a porch, and they have like one of those mini picnic tables that you see. I don't think its express purpose is to be like a bird feeder or whatever, but they put bird seed on the little picnic table, ideally for the birds, but things other than birds can eat bird seed, chief among them being squirrels. And if it was just squirrels, I wouldn't really be all that concerned with them because squirrels, they're kind of content with being on the outside. Squirrels have never bothered me. But I do remember one day I come back from work and I park in a place that I don't usually park. That's closer to my neighbor with the picnic table on their little porch, the mini picnic table. And I see 2 rats eating birdseed off of the little picnic table. And I'm like, this person is attracting rats. Like, oh my God, this is, like, ugh. And, I never ended up saying anything to that neighbor or to management or anything like that. I think I was just like really tired and over it that day. So I was like, whatever. But yeah, I still think about that sometimes. Yeah. That's not what I wanted to talk about today. I have a whole list of things. Where is it? Here it is. I have a whole list of things that I want to talk about that don't include rats or, flies. And by the way, when I say rats, I do quite mean them because I remember when I was, younger in school, people would call any rodent a rat. I remember one day a creature had gotten into one of our classrooms and everyone started screaming like, oh my God, it's a rat, it's a rat. And eventually I see it and it's like a little field mouse. I was like, oh, that's so adorable. And everyone else is like freaking out. But no, these were not field mice that I saw. These were big, dirty city rats. Okay. And listen, I have respect for rats as creatures. They're very intelligent. People keep them as pets. Unfortunately, they don't live very long. So it's kind of like endured heartbreak if you are a person who keeps rats as pets. But I don't have respect for big, dirty city rats. I think they need to stay out in the woods where they belong and not, in any amount of proximity to me. Like, and I did see a rat when I was in Chicago. I did not go to see the Chicago rat hole because, it's been, like, paved over for quite some time now, so it's like, even if I wanted to go see the rat hole, I wouldn't have been able to because there would have been nothing to see. And also, I think it was probably a little bit far from where I was staying. But I did see a rat. I saw one. So that was interesting. Yeah, anyways, back to what I was actually trying to talk about today. So, last episode, where I primarily talked about my trip to Chicago, I teased that, once that episode had gone up, the day after that, why am I holding this? Put that down. The day after that would be the very first show that I booked, and it was, and I'm going to talk about it because it was grand. It was grand. I had a blast. I think everyone else had a blast. But I'm not gonna lie. In the lead up to that show, I was like really anxious about it. Like I was so just like nervous. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if nobody shows up? Because that is it's a real thing that can happen. Okay. I've been to at least one show now where, not nobody showed up because obviously I was there, but it was very few people that showed up. And, it was disheartening. So, I didn't want that to happen again, but thankfully people showed up. People showed up and enough people showed up where I was, happy, content with the amount of money that I was able to give to the out-of-town band, and they're very thankful for it. And, and I think that, well, okay, before I get to all of that, I don't know, I guess I could just run it down. So the bands that I had at Baby's first show that I've booked was Measureless Aeons, because of course, how could I not have Measureless Aeons there? I mean, I am literally wearing a Crypt Eater shirt like right now, but Measureless Aeons. A newer band called Bucksnort, which, have I talked about them before? I feel like I have. I should have. Because I've seen them at their first show ever, and I feel like I've talked about it then. But, at this point, I've gone to so many shows, they're starting to bleed together, unfortunately. But I did take pictures at their first show, and that is on my Instagram, Jackson Underground, if you want to see that. That was their show with Skin Man and another band that was from out of town that I can't quite remember the name of, unfortunately. Um, I could just look at my Instagram to see what it actually was. Let's see. It was Skin Man. Oh, the Hearst Collective. How could I forget that? That was a great show, by the way. And that was their first show ever, and they killed it. So I was like, let me bring them back. Let me book them. Let me book them again. And they did really well. Measureless Aeons, of course, did really well. I have a video. Oh my gosh, it was so funny. Because, Brian in Measureless Aeons, he's the drummer, and I guess also the de facto, sound engineer as well. He has a lot of stuff. He has a lot of equipment and stuff like that. And he also had a smoke machine. And where we were at was a sunflower oven, which, if you've never been there, it's a bakery. It's pretty small. It's not exactly a big space. And they kept turning on the fog machine, and it would just engulf everyone in smoke and fog, and it was just, I don't know, it was funny to me. But there was that. They of course did great. And then the out of town band that came, called Realms of Death. They are from Texas. They are a death metal crossover band. Oh, they were phenomenal. They were so good. Oh, goodness. Oh my. I couldn't ask for a better band to be at my first show, to be completely honest. I loved every second of seeing them. They really brought the energy, even though it was, I would say, a modest crowd. It was a Thursday night as well, I should say. So, for a Thursday night, I thought it was a pretty good turnout. But still kind of a smaller size crowd. But gosh, they performed as if there were 500 people there instead of, I think, maybe 20 people ended up showing up. Why does that sound weird? Ended up showing up. That's correct. That didn't feel correct. Well, anyways, that many people ended up showing up. And, thankfully it was a good amount, so I didn't have to give them a $5 bill at the end of the night. And thankfully, at the end of the show, they had a line at their merch table. So I'm hoping, I know they had a good time, because at the end of the show, they were like, oh, we would love to come back. And I was like, you guys want to come back? That's so crazy. Oh my God. Yes, please do. And what's even crazier is that at the Sunflower Oven, this has happened one time before. It was the show where Tear Dungeon, I have a short about them on the podcast channel. They were the ones in the gimp masks. At the very end of their set, of Tear Dungeon set, the breaker tripped. And it was at the very end, so the show just kind of ended. But that was the last time I've seen that happen. But for this one, the breaker tripped twice, both times in the middle of a song, and we had to wait for for Ansley to go in the back of the bakery, back in the kitchen, to flip a switch or whatever to get it to come back. And I was like, oh man. The first time it happened, I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of funny. I was like, oh, there's some comedy here. The second time, I was like, okay, this bit is getting old. Thankfully, it did not happen a third time, because then I would have been mad. But I was like, yeah, that was something that happened. But that didn't faze them at all. They just picked up right where they left off, and it was a good show. Oh, such great energy. A lot of the kids here. It's something that I've learned, which they're not really kids. I mean, there are some teenagers. There are mostly, I would say, college age students, but the kids love to mosh. That's something that I have realized, which, I mean, yes, it's fun. But, the children, they just want to mosh. And mosh they did. And that was just wow, yeah. The crowd interaction was great. The energy was great. everything was just great, and there's really no reason for me to be like so nervous in the lead up to all of that, because it went well, you know. And I was like, oh gosh, what if they don't have a good time? What if they're like, oh man, we're never coming back to Jackson, and like we're gonna tell people not to come here? And thankfully that ended up being the case, you know. I'm happy and glad that the scene here is where it's at, where, you know, it is overwhelmingly positive, I would say, the interactions between bands and, you know, attendees. You know, aside from like one time, which that didn't involve me, so I don't care, but aside from, you know, one unfortunate time, I will say, I have, and again, that didn't involve me, so I can't even say that I had a good time at that show that I'm talking about, that I'm gonna move past. But, you know, it's just, the scene here is just so amazing, you know. It's I don't know. I'm at a loss for words. It's like and it's so crazy to think about too, you know. I was looking back at some old episodes of the pod, not to watch them, but I was just kind of scrolling back in my video section in the YouTube studio, and I had seen that, you know, it was what, maybe a year ago now, something like that, probably a little bit over a year ago now, that I went to my first like punk show here. And now a year later, here I am, you know, talking about it on the pod and writing about it for Jackson Underground, and now I'm booking shows. Like, that's crazy. It's only been a year. It's only been a year, and things have just gotten honestly so great for me. And, you know, I'm gonna clip this part, what I'm about to say, and I don't post, you know, podcast clips on Instagram because I just don't feel like it. But I think I'm gonna post this one on here, and I'm gonna try to be as succinct as I can, because YouTube has like a 1 minute limit, and I'm a yapper, obviously, so I I just, you know, I don't know, I'm gonna try to collect my thoughts. But it's really crazy because my birthday is coming up in, let's see, when this comes out, it'll be probably less than 2 weeks. It's on Labor Day. So this will be my final podcast episode where I'm 24 years old. The next time you see me on this here YouTube channel, I'm gonna be 25. That's gonna be crazy. We'll talk about that when that happens. But, you know, or will I record? I don't know. I'll have to figure that out. But no, because I already figured out. This episode is the last time that you're going to see me 24 years old. So that's crazy. But, you know, this time last year, I was like truly going through it. And I feel like, you know, I am going through it in various levels pretty much all the time now, which is a crazy thing to say and to think about, but we're gonna move past that. But, you know, this time last year, I was like not great. I was like not great at all. It was bad. I'm not even gonna front, like it was like really bad. Like it was like the pits, the depths. It wasn't great. And, you know, at the time, I was really looking for something to kind of, I guess, get me out of the house. I'm realizing you guys can't see what I'm doing. I'm like pulling on the strings of my sweatpants. I'm realizing this looks weird, so I'm gonna stop. No, I'm not. I'm gonna keep doing it, actually. But at that time last year, you know, I was coming out of a friendship, and I was taking it really hard. And I was really just looking for something to just, like, you know, kind of get out of the house, because I really wasn't leaving the house at that time. Kind of get out of the house and just, like, be around people, but not exactly, you know, not socialize all that much. And, you know, it had been, like, a few weeks, probably a couple months. So I think my first show might have been in July or something like that. I can't really remember. But, you know, I hadn't really been going to shows super regularly at that time, and now I kind of am. But I don't know what to say. It's been a crazy year, in a good way, I'll say. You know, just everyone that I've met in this community, everyone that I've interacted with all of the bands that I've seen, all of the bands that I've seen be created, in the short time that I've been here. And again, all of the people I've met and talked to, and people who have just said that they like what I'm doing with this podcast, or they like what I'm doing with Jackson Underground, or now they like what I'm doing with Good Gigs Jackson, which I will say that's still not fully me. I inherited it. I'm just helping out, honestly, to be completely honest. So it's like all of that really has had an impact on me for the better, I think, and I don't know where I would be, like mentally or emotionally or just like in any way, if I hadn't found this community and if I hadn't been welcomed so warmly into this community. Like, I can't even say if it would have been good or bad if it wouldn't have happened. I truly don't know what would have happened, so it's like this has been a year. I don't know how else to say it. It's just been a year. One thing after the other, some good, some bad. And I think being a part of the, punk and DIY and kind of underground community here in Jackson has just filled my heart with joy in ways that I can't even really describe. I am really struggling to find a way to describe it, but being able to do this, even just being able to go to shows and yap about it, that has been so great for me. Being able to interview bands and write about it, even though I haven't really been super consistent, but, things are happening. I don't know. I have a lot going on. And being able to, set up these shows and I don't know, it's just, I don't have the words for it. It's just amazing. Every person that I see at shows, and even if we just exchange like a smile and a wave or a fist bump or a hug, it's like that helps, Who could have seen it coming? Having friends, good for your mental health? More at 11? Like what? Like who truly could have seen that coming? Human interaction is good for you? We need to contact NASA because I don't think the people know, So I don't know. I really don't know what else to say about it other than, I'm so thankful that this is where life is taking me. And I know that when it eventually comes time for me to leave this place, because, I don't know how many times I can say this, but I'm not staying in Jackson for a prolonged amount of time. It's just not happening. Like, it's fine, but I could be other places, And I think there are a lot of Jacksonians that would agree with me about that. I don't think that's like, So, I know that when the time comes for when I eventually have to leave, it's going to be like really, really, really hard. And yeah, that's all I have to say. That was super disjointed and probably didn't make a lot of sense, but I just wanted to say it. And, my mood has not been made worse by going to a show. It's only ever been made better. Like, I go to a show and I'm like, man, this is great. Just like everything in general. It's just great. Those are my feelings that I have after leaving a show. I've never been to a bad show here in Jackson, even the one where me and like 4 other people were the only ones there. I still had a great time. I have never been to a show that I didn't like here. I've never seen a band that I haven't liked here. I have yet to meet a person that has been nasty to me. Well, okay. I am sort of ignoring, the whole incident with the Proud Boy, but that's separate. That was very early on as well. And I don't know whose credit, somebody's credit, I've never seen that person again. So, there's that, I guess. So, it's just great. And I know there are some so-and-sos within the community. There's so-and-sos within every community, but for the most part, I will say I have only had positive interactions, positive memories, positive experiences doing this, and I just, yeah, that's all I gotta say. That's a lot of words, but I don't know how I'm gonna condense that down for like a clip, but I'm gonna try. So, yeah, that's what I really wanted to say, but there's still more for me to talk about, including the last show that I went to, which was on Saturday, which is yesterday, because today is Sunday, believe it or not. So I saw this band at the End of All Music. There's a record store here in Jackson called Cheap City, and they're not from Rhode Island. They're not from Massachusetts. They're from Cheap City. Please get it right. And they were honestly so great. Like, I sometimes when an out of town band comes, I'll like listen to their music. And when I am booking a band, I'll listen to their music just to get an idea of like what the vibe is. But for shows that I haven't booked, and for that would be the majority of shows that I've been to, I usually don't listen to the music ahead of time because I don't know. I do sometimes want to be like surprised. I sort of get the vibe based on the bands that are supporting them as to what their music will be like, but I don't know. I don't know if I was prepared for Cheap City, because after, let's see, the first couple of bands, it was Parrot Weather, which is kind of like this experimental duo with twins. Oh my gosh, what's their names? Oh my god, why am I forgetting their names? They're the Waltzes. Their last name is Walt. It's Heath and Hunter Walt. They are twins, and you'll know that because they look exactly alike. And they're kind of I don't know, experimental rock is really the only way that I can kind of describe it. And they're great. Like them a lot. And then after that was Frankie Friday, which is Jordan from Crypt Eater's like solo project, which is a more like a dancey type of, what do you call it? I don't know. Synthesizer? I don't know. It's sort of dancey. It's sort of fun. It's sort of, I don't know. I don't know why I can't describe it, but that's Frankie Friday. By the way, there are, actually, I don't know if there are anymore. There were like 2 or 3 Frankie Friday tapes available at End of All Music because they do sell local music. And they sell tapes too. Not a lot of tapes, but they do have some. Like, they had some Smokies tapes. They had some Frankie Friday tapes. They had some Amity Atlas. That's not it. What's the name of that band? Oh my gosh. They have a lot of local band tapes. So if you're wondering, maybe you'll snag the very last Frankie Friday tape that is at End of All, which I didn't see it there when I was there, so it might already be gone. I don't know. There also might be a Bandcamp. Or maybe, it's like classical music, you just gotta be there. You just have to be there if you want to listen to it. There's no recordings anywhere available because we don't have the technology, because we're in classical times. But Frankie Friday was after that. Cheap City went on third. And as I saw them setting up, I was like, oh, they got a drum kit. It's like, oh, okay, that's normal, duh. Like, most bands have drum kits. Like, okay. And then there was I don't think it was a full-sized keyboard. It might have been like abridged. I don't know what you call them. I don't know music things. I don't know why anyone put me in charge of anything. But it's like, it wasn't full size. I don't think it was full size, but it wasn't like one of the teeny tiny little keyboards either. But it was like somewhere in between that, one of those keyboards. And I think it was on like an organ setting. I don't know if it was for all of the songs, but it sort of was. And then they had another one of the smaller keyboards that had, I don't know what to call this like synthesizer sound, but I feel like you heard it a lot in the 80s, and it was like, I really can't Cause I mean, 80s was a lot of synthesizers, you know? It wasn't like synth wave, but it was more like I don't know. The only the only sound that I can describe that synthesizer to was that one video that was like bro shredding on the doohickey. It's like that kind of sound. I d- Listen, if you look up, okay, I'm gonna see if this is accurate. If you look up bro shredding on the doohickey, will you be able to find what I'm looking for? Let me see, bro shredding on the doohickey. There it is. Yes, you will be able to find it. Yeah, it's that sound. I don't know how else to describe it. I don't have like a library of musical instrumentation knowledge in my mind, so that's the only way that I can describe the sound. But it was a really good sound, and when I heard it, I was like, "Oh, we're in for a treat." And then, and then, and then I see the saxophone, and I'm like, this is about to be like nothing I've ever seen before. Like, oh my goodness. Like, when I saw that gat dang saxophone, I was like, oh, I'm about to be in for a treat. And in for a treat I was. I don't really know how to explain Cheap City's like music other than you just have to be there. You know, you just have to listen to it. I'm pretty sure they have a Bandcamp. They might be on Spotify. They're on various streaming platforms, but I don't know how else to describe it. You just gotta be there. And in fact, I do have a video. Let me see if they're on Spotify. Cheap City. Oh, they are. They are in Cheap City. And they have a decent amount of listeners, and they have some music on here. And yeah, that's where it is. So if you want to inquire about the music of Cheap City, it's online. I don't know what else to tell you. But it was really good. I was like, I didn't really know, you know, I go into gigs sometimes not really knowing what to expect, and then I'm pleasantly surprised, you know? And that's also why it's almost like not watching a trailer before seeing a movie, because you go in with no expectations. Like, usually, okay, I'm going to read a synopsis, you know, to get kind of an idea. But I guess in this situation, a synopsis would be just kind of, you know, the supporting bands. What are the supporting bands like? You know, that kind of gives you an idea sometimes. That gives you an idea of what the out of town band is going to be like. So, yeah, I think, yeah, I don't know. I feel like I had a thought and then I lost it. But I have some new trinkets and tchotchkes. I got a shirt, which I'm about to show you right now, and I also got a sticker. And I came up with the idea on a podcast episode long gone by, but I actually ended up, which I probably talked about this before, ended up actually executing the idea of having a sticker wall. So I have a cork pad, which are these old cork pads that I had when I was in college, and I just put some command strips on and put them on the wall. And instead of, you know, because again, I don't want to like stick the sticker to anything, because then I feel like if I get rid of the thing, then I won't have the sticker anymore. And I want to keep the stickers because they're like works of art, you know? So I thought I could just put how I used to hang up my art is that, you know, on the cork pads, I would put paper clips on them and put the pins through the paper clips so I'm not actually damaging the art. But now the majority of my art is like in frames, so I don't do that anymore, but I applied that to my sticker wall, and now my sticker / pin, because there's pins on there, my sticker and pin wall is pretty much full, so I'm gonna have to put up another cork pad at some point. But this is the shirt that I have. It's their little flag design. I don't know why I'm saying little. It's not little. It's normal sized. I'm trying to hold this up in a good way. Let me see. Here we go. Yeah, this is the shirt that I have, and I'm not gonna lie, my drawer is getting so full. I'm gonna have to, I don't know, I'm not gonna like buy a whole new dresser because I don't have enough clothes for that, but I feel like I've got a lot of band shirts now, and something that I've wanted to do for like a while is make a video going through all of like my band shirts and like when I got them and the story behind them, if there's a story behind them. And because, you know, I have a lot of band shirts and some of them I don't wear super often, And one of them has a hole in it, and it's just been sitting on my ironing board because I was like, oh, I'm gonna sew it up, and then I just never did. Like, I do still need to do that at some point because I would like to continue to wear the shirt. It's my first Invent Animate shirt that I got, which I have 2, 3? No, I only have 2 Invent. Is that true? No, it's not true. I do have 3 Invent Animate shirts. I have that white one from before. I mean, this isn't descriptive at all. But that I bought my first Invent Animate shirt before they got rid of the comma in their name. Okay. And then my second one I got was before Heavener came out. And then my third one that I have that I wear somewhat more regularly is one that I got after Heavener came out. And I'm so mad though, because that my second Invent Animate shirt that I have, I wore it to the laundromat. This is before I got my washer and dryer here. I wore it to the laundromat, and I'm putting the clothes in the washing machine at the laundromat, and I lift up the little thingy at the top, the latch, it's thingy at the top of the washing machine to put the detergent in there, and I just kind of let it fall down instead of placing it down, and I see these like water droplets come towards me, but I don't think much of it, and then I get home, and I look in the mirror, and I see that I got bleach splashed onto me, onto my black shirt, onto my brand new black shirt, which was that Invent Animate shirt, and, to this day, I don't really wear it out in public because the bleach stains are sort of conspicuous, and I'm really mad about it. I'm not happy at all. There's probably a way to, like, dye it, but I just haven't looked into it. It's a nice shirt. It's, The Sun Sleeps is that shirt design, so, I'm still waiting for them to restock those necklaces because I do want one. I want an Invent Animate sigil necklace, like, so bad. But whatever. What I would like for them to do, which I don't think they're going to do this because, I guess Still World is like the redheaded stepchild of their discography for whatever reason. But the sigil that's on Still World, the kind of, star and circle, which I think was like sort of redesigned for their newer era. I would like that, like, on a necklace. Now, could I just, like, I don't know, get it custom cut out of metal by some, like, Etsy designer? Maybe I could. Maybe I should make my own band merch, because sometimes I want, my band merch to look a certain way and they're just not selling it. And it's like, if I'm not making it and selling it for profit, I don't think it would be a bad idea because, I feel like for the most part, especially back in the day, if you want to like band merch, you just kind of made it yourself. So it's very DIY of me if I would do that. So, I mean, I have an Attack Attack shirt. That is their like old logo. Their Someday Came Suddenly era logo. And like I made that in Photoshop and had that printed on a shirt. And I still have that shirt. It's ended up being like way up here, like way up by the neckline. So it didn't print super well, but at the time they were still like fully broken up because I think I made it back in 2018. 2018. Yeah, 2018. And they didn't have any merch out because, they weren't together, so they weren't making music. And, I'm not going to talk about new Attack Attack because I haven't even been listening to it, so I can't even say whether or not it's actually good. So I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to move on, actually. So that was the show on yesterday. It was a lot of fun. A lot of people showed up. It was a very well-attended show, especially considering there's another show going on at a different place. And I was like, man, don't you just love it? It was a little crowded, though. I'm not going to lie. Involve Music, they have their shows outside in their little patio area, the little patio area, and it's not very big. So, it kind of crowded, I'm not gonna lie, but it was fine. Just a wee bit crowded and not hot. The last time I was at a show at the Involve Music, it was really hot. And it was still hot, but everyone wasn't like drenched in sweat this time around, thankfully. I think it's finally starting to cool down. For now. hopefully it'll last. I hope it'll last. I don't like the heat. I just want to wear my sweaters and my turtlenecks and, just be in my fall girl era. Just that's all I want out of this life. That's it. Moving on. Speaking of invent animate, good segue. The 22nd, which was, let me see, if Saturday was the 24th, the 22nd was Thursday. That was the 10th anniversary of Everchanger, their first album that they put out. Not their first piece of music, because they had an EP before that, but people kind of like to forget about that. It's fine, the EP, but we're not talking about her right now. So it is finally the 10th anniversary of Everchanger. I have heard very little about a 10th anniversary tour for Everchanger. If they do it in 2025, that's not going to make it any less special, but I just really want them to do it, even if it is in 2025 and it's not, their anniversary year. I will still accept it. I don't care. As long as they're playing that album in full and I get to see it, I'm gonna see it. If I'm able to. I might buy the plane ticket. I don't know. I did buy the plane ticket for Animals as Leaders, and that's in November. I'm so excited about that. Oh my god. I can't. Animals as Leaders. Animals as Leaders. That's all I have to say. Gosh. Anyway, about the plane ticket for Animals as Leaders, will I do the same for Invent Anime, considering, they are my top 5 band, of all time? I think I would. Are my coins stacking like I need them to? Well, if this is in 2025, I think I'll have a little bit of time to, save money. So I think I might be okay in that regard, but, I'm just sitting here. I'm just waiting for any amount of news about Everchanger 10th anniversary tour. Will I be hearing anything? Probably not, but I'm not losing hope. The year isn't done yet. We still have, let's see, September, October, November, December. We got 4 months. Okay. But what they did put out is, and this is fine, I guess, but they put out a instrumental version of the album, because all their albums have instrumental versions except for Everchanger. Now, Everchanger does have a 10th anniversary, it's not exactly a re-release because it is just the instrumental, but I'm wondering, I don't know, if they've maybe remastered it a little bit, because, I don't know, to me, when I listen to it, it kind of sounds very, I don't know, there's a lot of clarity, to the album that I don't know if it was there before. So if they did a sneaky little remaster, that would be cool. I don't even need them to re-record it. Just give it an updated master, and I would honestly be okay with that. And I don't know if they've done that or not, but it does sound somewhat different. The sound is just more clear to me. That's the only way I can describe it. So yeah, I think they have new vinyl releases. They might have new merch and stuff like that. I'm just gonna have to look isppply.com. Let's see what they have. This is okay, sorry. I just saw a $95 hoodie and I just reacted. I see a lot of Heavener merch, but not really anything for Everchanger, which is, not, yeah, let me see. Nope. I don't see anything here. That's unfortunate. Let me see. What else is in their shop? This is making for riveting. Absolutely riveting viewing experience, but I don't see anything on their merch store. There might be something on the labels store, but I don't feel like looking for it right now, so I'm not going to. But I know they have a vinyl release. It's a double LP, which I already have one, So like I don't really want to buy another one, but it's a double LP with the normal version of the album and the instrumental version of the album. But like considering I'm never playing these vinyls, like I don't know, I just didn't really see a need to repurchase it. Maybe one day. Sometimes when I'm at work, I'm sitting in my cubicle, I daydream about the life that I want, and the life that I want is having a dedicated room for listening to music, have like I don't know if I would have, because it wouldn't be 5.1 Dolby surround, because I feel like that only makes sense if you have like a home theater. And even though I am a movie person, an alleged filmmaker, I don't even know if I would want to have a theater in my house. I don't know. It's just, I feel like a home theater can never compare to like a theater like out in the world. I like the theater experience. Some people think they're too good to go to the theater, and I am not one of them. Okay, I don't want to have a theater in my house. I would, however, like to have a music room, just have a really nice speaker setup, high fidelity sound. There's not a lot of streaming services aside from like Tidal that offers like true high fidelity sound, because you're probably not going to get that on Spotify. If you buy through like Bandcamp, I do know that a lot of bands will have, some more high quality files on there. So that might be something if I do want to stick to digital, but then I'm gonna have to figure out, okay, like I think CDs are, I'm trying to think, because vinyls degrade over time, tapes also degrade over time. Nobody's I was gonna say wax cylinders, but who is using wax, who is making wax cylinders, like straight up, who's doing that? Because those degrade after like one play. So I think society has evolved past wax cylinders, respectfully, to all the wax cylinder enjoyers out there. um, I don't know, like what's reel to reel, like magnetic tape, which that's just a tape, but in like a bigger housing, I guess. I don't know. What are the other physical mediums of like music listening? Those are the only ones. All the variations of the tape, because there's like different kinds of tapes. I don't know. I think CDs have, been agreed upon to be the highest quality of sound that there is. So, thankfully a lot of bands, do sell CDs. So that's if I did ever want to go down that route, then like yeah, probably would do that. But also I think, I don't know, I feel like digital is like the easiest and also, to be completely honest, like the cheapest. However, if I am in a fantasy scenario where I have a house that is like big and has enough rooms in it that I have my own dedicated music room, I don't think cost would be an issue. So I don't think I would be worried too much about how much CDs would cost. But anyways. However, I will say growing up, my dad, who I think was more into music than my mom was, I always remember this, in our first house, we had like this whole like setup in our living room. Because, back in the day when people had, big CRT TVs, those were like centerpieces in the house. We didn't have the whole TV built into like a piece of furniture. I'm not that old, okay? But we did have, the home console and the TV in the center. And then, it was like a bona fide like entertainment center, because we had, the shelves with all our VHS tapes on them. And my dad had this, it was a CD tower that had all these CDs in them. And he had these two big tower speakers on either side of like the entertainment center. And he had like, it was one of those kind of modular, like, I'm not really sure what they're called exactly, but you had one that was like a radio, and then you had one that had like a CD intake. That's not what it's called at all. Not a CD drive, but a CD player. And then you had another one. Did I already say a radio? I don't know. But I feel like there's like a couple of different modules. We had one that accepted tapes. I don't know if those were like separate parts or what. I do think, however, the radio one and like the CD one might have been separate, but we had like these boxes basically, and they had the buttons and the knobs on them. And keep in mind, all of this is when I was like a kid, so I'm having some trouble remembering this, but I do remember that we had, a whole like music setup. And, we weren't rich or anything by any means. And I think for the most part, if you were a music enjoyer and you were kind of middle class, you had like a music setup in your house. Like even my grandparents growing up, and this would be on my mom's side, my grandparents had like they had like a bunch of vinyl records, and I never like bothered to look through them or anything like that, but I remember seeing them and seeing like the shelves and stacks of vinyl records and the record player. And I think they too had like the two big tower speakers that went with it, so like you know that would be nice. I mean, it wasn't like its own dedicated room or anything like that, but it was definitely like a major fixture of the house, of like the living room. And I think it would be really nice to have something like that again. Because like now, I mean, I have these speakers and this like Bluetooth receiver that I got for Christmas, I think 2 years ago. They're not particularly big, but they're not really a main fixture either, because I mean they're small, they're like bookshelf speakers, and the receiver is like, I mean, it's about as big as a pack of cards. So this isn't like a big piece of furniture. Not like I could fit any big pieces of furniture in this apartment, because like there's no room for anything. So I just kind of, I don't know, it's weird to say I miss it, because I can't tell you how many times we actually used, anytime my dad actually listened to one of those CDs in our house. Like I always remember it just being there. I don't remember us like ever using it. So I don't know, but it would be nice to have a music listening room, just like high fidelity sound, just like as loud as I want, soundproof it. I can just go in and I can just listen to my jams, and there's not gonna be any like sharp sounds or anything like that. Everything will sound great and it'll just be nice. Sometimes I just want to jam out. And I do, but not in the way that I would like. But I don't have the coinage for this lifestyle that I yearn for. So for now, it'll have to be a daydream at my cubicle. So I guess I am kind of an audiophile, because I do really notice like when things sound like they're mixed well and like they're not. Because, like, I really like Idola's album To Speak to Listen, but I can just tell that compared to even some albums of the time, because it came out in 2012, I can just tell that the mix just wasn't great. I don't know. I can't really put my finger on it, but listening to it, it just feels kind of crunchy. And maybe it is just a version that's on Spotify. Maybe there is a version that's, like, mixed well or mixed better out there somewhere. I don't know, but I don't know. Considering that Spotify is the main way that I consume my music, that's what I notice. So up next in music news, apologies are for the week. That re-recorded version came out this past week. And I actually sat down and listened to it. It was while I was at work, but I still gave it a listen. I gave it a whole listen through. And I will say, Apologies Are for the Week is probably like a top 15 album for me. There are a lot of albums that I consider like a top 10. There's probably more than 10 albums out there that I would consider a top 10. But if I had to list them out, I think Apologies for the Week would land somewhere within the top 10, probably pretty high up in it. Or no, the top 15, and land pretty high up in it. And so for its 15th anniversary, because it came out in 2009, they re-recorded it with a bunch of features on every song. And I will say, I don't think I recognized a single voice. I don't know. I thought the features were nice. I thought the idea was nice, but I don't know. Like all kind of, I don't want to say they all sound the same to me, but they all kind of did sound the same to me. Like, oh, I don't know. Oopsie, something. I don't know. I just don't have the ear, I guess. But I don't know. I already have like a lot of emotional attachment to that album and the way it sounds. So hearing it like a different way, I mean, it's still recognizable as the songs, but you know, it's not what I listened to when I was in like high school. And I don't know how that sounds, but it's like I think the album is enjoyable, but comparing it to the original version, I don't think it's going to replace it, which I don't think it was intended to replace it. So, it's not even at risk of replacing it. However, I will say something that kind of annoyed me is that I've been listening to like a 2000s mix on Spotify because I like, some of the older tracks from some of the bands that I listen to, particularly from the 2000s. And they've been putting the re-recorded versions of Apologies for the Week in the 2000s mix, and I'm like, why are you doing that? Like, yes, it's a song, but it's a modern re-recording and like remix of it, so it's like, why? Ugh. Anyway, that just kind of annoyed me. But as far as the album itself, I thought it was fine. And again, it's not going to replace the original version for me, but I thought it was a fun idea to get, a bunch of people from a bunch of bands to have features on these. I mean, they are classic songs, So it's like, yeah, I'm with it. I'm I'm with it. I can get behind it. But I will still be streaming the 2009 version because, that's the one that I have in my head and my heart. So speaking of re-recordings, very good segue there. Apparently, I'm having to pull out my Wendy Williams for this, but apparently, the Amity Affliction is re-recording Let the Ocean Take Me, which I thought was interesting. I had seen them on their, what is it, 10th? Has it been 10th? Was it 10th anniversary? Was it 10th? When did... I saw them on their anniversary tour. I don't know which year. It is the 10th. Duh, it was the 10th anniversary. I saw them on the 10th anniversary tour for Let the Ocean Take Me. And I was like, oh, this is enjoyable. I didn't think they were going to re-record it, though. However, from what I am seeing, because there is one song out now, it's My Father's Son, that's out now, which I will say is probably one of the better B-sides from that album. Which actually, I like all of the B-sides on the album, compared to like the singles. I am of the belief that for the most part, pretty much, if an album has good singles, the B-sides are probably going to be even better. I don't know why, but what ends up happening is that I usually end up liking the B-sides of an album better than the singles. Except for one time, which I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm moving past it, but Everyone Loves You Once You Leave Them. The singles were good. All the other tracks, not feeling them. Will I give them another chance? I don't know. I still listen to the singles to Everyone Loves You Once You Leave Them because they're bangers. Considering we are talking about the Amity Affliction, but it's just, that album was just a teeny weeny bit disappointing. Just the littlest bit, and, oh, the ghosts heard me. They heard me disrespecting the album. Okay, that's fixed. Anyway. But yeah. Apparently, they're re-recording this album. It's like like a Taylor's version, where Taylor Swift is like reclaiming ownership over her songs by re-recording them. Apparently, the Amity Affliction, once they were making Let the Ocean Take Me, they got kind of a raw deal with that album. So by re-recording it, they are kind of reclaiming it in that same way that Taylor Swift is. And, I don't think that's a bad idea. But again, it's almost sort of the same for the re-recorded versions of, oh my god, I was just talking about it. Apologies for the Week, where it's like, the songs that I have emotional attachment to, they're the old versions. And I don't know, if I could really get on board with the newer versions. I listened to My Father's Son, a few times, the new version of it. And it's like, I didn't dislike it. I thought it was fine. I thought it was good, even. But it's like, I don't know. There's just some newer elements that it's like, I just couldn't get fully on board with. You know, they added like some newer synths in there, which I was like, okay, whatever. But like, I don't know. It's just like I said before, my emotional attachment is to the original versions of those songs. So I don't know if I could really ever like be emotionally attached in the same way to the new versions like I could to the original versions. So that's really all there is to it, I think. I think they're fine. I am really excited to see what the full version of the album is going to look like, just like I was excited to see what the full version of Apologies for the Week was going to look like. And I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. You know, I hate that they got such a raw deal with the original version of the album that they're having to re-record it all this time later. Um, you know, an album that isn't necessarily that old for them, because I mean they had like a few albums before Let the Ocean Take Me. Like my first introduction to them was through Chasing Ghosts, and I think that was like their third album that they put out, like in total, because I think they had two, at least one album before that. And it's like, you know, maybe we would have wanted to see a newer take on some of those older albums, maybe not, I don't know. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. And in further music news, which I'm not gonna get super into it because I haven't actually listened to the song, but Bless the Fall, which, by the way, ooh, what's today? Is today? Yes, today is the 25th. I got a memory in my Google Photos where it was like, oh, it's been 1 year since this picture. And it was a picture of me seeing Hollow Body's 10th anniversary tour last August. And I was like, oh, that's so nice. And by that time, they had put out like one new song because, you know, if you weren't aware, there people were basically fully of the belief that Bless the Fall was like dead. Because they hadn't put out music in a really long time. They hadn't toured in a really long time. There had been no movement from anyone in the band. And it was like, oh, Bless the Fall is like dead now. And I was even mourning. I was mourning Bless the Fall. I was like, dang, you know, another band bites the dust. It's fine. We got some good material out of them. They had a good run. But then they come back with a new single and the Hollow Body 10th anniversary tour. And I was like, oh, fun, new music. But then they didn't really put anything out. I mean, for like a year. I mean, it's been well over a year by now. But they have a new song with, I believe, Alpha Wolf. That's out now. I haven't listened to it yet, so I can't, you know, really give my opinions on it. But I think that's cool. I like Alpha Wolf. I think it's crazy that they had a song with Ice-T. Like, whoa. But the only time that I've seen them, I was truly blown away. Just, yeah, it was great. And I would really love to see them again. I know they had another US tour sometime this year, I think it was. But I wasn't able to go to it because they didn't stop anywhere near here. So I was like, oh, I'm going to have to miss it. But who knows? They might tour in the States, you know, supporting or headlining once again at some point in the future. And I might be able to catch them. I did really like Alpha Wolf. I really want to see them again. Just, love it. Anywho. So, I think that kind of wraps up our musical topics for now. But, like I said earlier on in the pod, I will soon be the birthday girl. By the time this comes out, I think it'll be like, I don't know, maybe like a week and a half. I don't know. My birthday is on Labor Day this year, and it's the big 2-5. I'm going to be 25 years old. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around, so I'm just not gonna. But yeah, that'll be fun. I don't really have anything planned. You know, I'm just going to kind of chill, just relax real hard, you know, and, you know, no matter what I do, I'll probably end up having a better birthday this year than I did last year. So the bar is kind of on the floor. The bar is kind of on the floor. But I thought about, like, ooh, what if I take myself out to dinner or something like that? And actually, I do kind of still want to do that. So I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe I will have a little solo date with myself on my birthday, Labor Day, the big 2-5, you know. So that'll be nice. Yeah, again, it's truly been a year, but I've already talked about it, so I'm not going to dwell on it. But as for other things that I've been doing and have been going on, I saw probably one of my favorite movies. I mean, Let me see. I'm gonna have to quantify that actually. I don't know if this movie would make it to like my top 10. Maybe, but it might make it to my top 15, maybe something like that. So, when was this? Last Sunday, I went to the theater and I saw Coraline in 3D. They re-released it for its 15th anniversary in 3D. Plus, it had some special features at the end, which I thought was nice. But oh man, I had seen Coraline many times. It came out again 15 years ago, around the time when I would say about 8 or 9 years old, something like that. So I was like the correct age to be watching that for like the first time. And I will say okay, so my first time watching Coraline, and really a lot of my first time watching a lot of movies when I was that age, I saw them on premium channels like HBO, Cinemax, Stars, Entourage. Does anyone remember Entourage? That channel? Was it called Entourage? Or was it called, oh my gosh, not Entourage. Encore. Encore. The Encore channels. Listen, there used to be a lot of home movie channels like HBO and like Cinemax and Stars and Encore, and I think those were it. Those are the ones that we had anyways. And so that would really be the way that I would watch movies growing up, because we didn't have a theater in Selma. Shock and surprise, I know. Eventually we did get one, but like, I'm not gonna lie. The Walton Theater is not hitting. It ain't hitting like that. Like, it wasn't a major theater. So it was only very, very, very special occasions that we actually went to a movie theater. Because, like, the nearest theater is what? Either in Montgomery or Prattville. So either 30 minutes to an hour away. And, you know, I'm not gonna lie. I understand my parents. Like, I wouldn't want to lug two kids all the way to Prattville, 30 minutes away. Or it's certainly not Montgomery, at the end of a week. Or during the week, God forbid. During a school week. Like, no. So, like, it's understandable why I never really saw any movies in the theaters up until the age of, like, I don't know. The only time that I actually really started to regularly go to the theater was when I was in college here. So, I still view the theater experience as a special one because it wasn't something that I grew up with. So it's not, not something that's ordinary to me. Which is why I've never had a theater in my house, because why would I do that when I could go to a theater? Like, whoa, And so, the first time I saw Coraline, it was not in theaters. It was probably at home in my living room. And I probably missed like the first 5 minutes of the movie because, there was sort of on demand, but it wasn't as robust as it is now, obviously, with like streaming services. And I feel like back then it was like a brand new feature, like having on demand. Or if you wanted to watch something on demand, you'd have to record it like on a DVR or like a VHS tape. That's how you'd have on demand back then. But usually if you wanted to watch a movie, you'd probably end up missing the first 10 minutes of it, because or the first like the entire first act of it, because you're flipping through channels trying to find something to watch, and you see a movie but it's already started, so you just kind of go to it and you have to catch up on the plot as it's happening. So yeah, that was my movie watching experience as a kid, and that's how I saw Coraline for the first time. And after it was released, it came out in 2009, so I probably would have watched it for the first time in 2010, or maybe like late 2009, because it would take like several months before like a movie would come to like the premium channels like HBO and Cinemax and Stars and Encore and all of that. So I ended up watching it for the first time many months after it came out. But I still remember being like fascinated by it. It was scary, but it wasn't like, I was afraid of truly everything growing up. Like, I was, especially at that age, but I feel like it was, kind of an appropriate amount of horror for my age, because while it was, it was scary, but it wasn't like terrifying. I was more intrigued by it than I was afraid of it, you know? And that's kind of how I view horror now, where most of the time I'm not like terrified by it. I'm just like intrigued and I'm like interested. I'm like, oh, this is like the aesthetics are like really scary, and like, I love horror now. I think, I'm more of a psychological horror type of person. I've never liked slasher movies. I've never liked like supernatural horror, really. I love the human aspects of horror. Like, to me, you don't have to introduce like a killer or a monster for things to be scary, because sometimes people are just scary on their own. They don't have to be possessed by a demon or, be a mask wearing serial killer to be scary. And, that's my thoughts on that. Um, but yeah, I didn't actually go to see, let's see, because I have seen Coraline in theaters before, and I think it might have been last year that I saw it, which would have been its like ninth anniversary that I saw in theaters. And then, eventually I find out that, oh, it was actually supposed to be a 3D movie. Like, because, the times that I've seen it on an HBO or a Cinemax or a Stars or an Encore, I mean, we didn't have a 3D TV, we just had a regular TV, so I saw it regular. And, I was like, oh man, after I'd seen it in theaters last year, I was like, oh man, wouldn't it be nice to see this in its original 3D? I'm probably never going to be able to, because they're probably not going to re-release it. But eventually, I find out earlier this year that they're re-releasing Coraline in theaters for its 15th anniversary. And not only are they re-releasing it, but it's going to be remastered in 3. And I was like, I have to go. I have to go. So I ended up buying my ticket like 2 weeks in advance for that, because pretty much as soon as it went on sale, I was like, I gotta get my ticket. I've got to secure my seat, because trust, I will be seated, okay? And I will be seated in an optimal seat. I'm not going to be right up on I was going to say the monitor, the screen, because that's not going to be good. I want a good seat when I go to a theater, which is why I always buy my tickets in advance. Usually not weeks in advance, usually only like a couple of days, or maybe 1 week, not like 2 full weeks, but I was really excited about this. And man, I mean, Coraline is already a good movie. Like, its cultural impact is definitely there, but seeing it in its original 3D, it's great. It's so good. Like, oh my gosh, like, if you even if you've never seen it, if you've never seen Coraline before, I implore you to go and watch it in 3D. I think it's still in theaters here. I'm not sure, but I would imagine it would probably get an extended run in like a bigger city. So, I'm just, what a movie. What a piece of filmmaking. And then the special feature that they have at the end, which I thought was very fascinating. And, I'm not gonna lie, during the movie, I was like, man, why are people bringing their kids in here? I was like, this is literally a kid's movie that I'm watching. I can't complain. But, there's definitely a toddlering during the movie, and that was kind of annoying. But I was like, whatever. I'm literally a quarter of a way through life, and I'm watching a children's movie. But to my credit, the movie came out when I was a child. So technically, it's for me, okay? It is for me, not these little babies who probably can't even appreciate it. Okay? It's for me. Not me not me being elitist to literally children. Anyways, what was I saying? Oh yeah. So many people left before the special features. It's crazy. Like, I'm not leaving that theater until the house lights come on. And the house lights didn't come on until after those special features were up. And also, they said before the movie even started, stay tuned, there's special features at the end. And it's like, okay, if I'm paying for special features, I'm gonna watch the special features. Anyways, it essentially just went through how technology's changed since Coraline came out, because they started working on it in 2008. Yeah, 2008. And, 3D printers weren't as prevalent back then. or maybe they didn't exist at all, or maybe if they did exist, they were not very, now pretty much anybody can go out, buy a 3D printer for like what, a couple $100s, and like start printing stuff at home. And so it went through, the process of not printing, but creating all of the models for, Coraline and the rest of well, actually, no, it was just Coraline. They didn't even really go into how they made like the various versions of the Bell Dam. I would have really liked to see that because, towards the end where she's at like her final form, she's like made out of sewing needles. That's cool. I wanted to kind of see that, but it really just kind of focused on Coraline's character model, which is fine. She is the titular character. So it's like, okay, I mean, fine. But yeah, it kind of went into how easier, or I guess, yeah, how much easier things are now for like stop motion animation versus, back then. And, I mean, it is easier these days because, character models can be made, and props and sets and everything that goes into it can be made a lot faster, and a lot more easily these days. But, unfortunately, stop motion is still very time consuming and very expensive. So I wish there was, more stop motion in this world, but it's just it's not super prevalent. And my stop motion appreciation does come from Coraline, but it also comes from Fantastic Mr. Fox, because that came out when I was a kid as well. And again, I remember watching that on the premium channels, and a lot of the times missing the entire first act, which I gotta go back and watch Fantastic Mr. Fox, because I mean, it is a good movie. It's probably, I sometimes forget that that's a Wes Anderson movie, but I think that's like right below Grand Budapest Hotel, I think, for me. Which is crazy that 2 Wes Anderson movies have come out in recent times for me, and one of them not even a blip on my radar, and the other one I feel like requires a second watch, that I didn't watch it the second time. And yeah, and I'm of course talking about Asteroid City, which was unfortunately just kind of okay. It was just kind of okay for me. And then the one before that, the French Dispatch, I like the idea of like having, a lot of different stories in one movie. I think that's, great. And having them they weren't connected per se. They're sort of connected in a way. I did like that idea, but I felt like there was so much going on that I couldn't really focus on one thing. And I feel like I was too focused on trying to like spot things in the background of that movie that I wasn't really focusing on what was actually going on for each of the, storylines, which again is why I said it probably requires a second watch. And again, another movie that I should probably rewatch. It's a good movie. It's a good movie. So yeah, that's that. That's Coraline in 3D. And if you haven't seen it, you should. But I've been talking for too long now, and it's 9 o'clock, and I've got to work tomorrow. I've got many long weeks ahead of me. So, yep. That's gonna do it for me. Follow me on Twitter. Because if you're not following me on Twitter, let me hear it. You're only getting half the story. And that's going to be it for me. Thank you. Or this has been, rather, the 32nd episode of the Runnin My Mouth podcast. Thank you for allowing me to run my mouth. I'm so stopped up right now. I don't know why. It's not a good feeling. I don't know. Every time I like talk for a prolonged amount of time, I just get all phlegmy up in here. It's really weird. I don't know why. Thankfully, I think all the flies are dead, so I can sleep in peace tonight knowing I'm not going to be accosted by their buzzing black bodies around me. So, yeah. I'm gonna go to bed, actually. I have to go to work tomorrow. Yeah.